Hey Leanne, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, it's good. It's really nice to be in the studio with you again. Hello everybody, thanks for joining us.
Hiya.
My name is Mark Grist.
And my name's Leanne Moden.
Yeah, and we are here hosting a very exciting episode of We the Poets. We've got a great guest, Berkavitch, coming in to join us. We'll get to Berkavitch in a second, but how are things going with you, Leanne, and how's that gigging going?
Yeah, good. Not so much on the gigging front, but I've been doing like a lot of writing in residency kind of stuff over the summer. Yeah. So I've just finished a residency with a women's arts organisation in Mansfield, which was really, really lovely, really cool.
Well, you do something with the libraries as well.
Yeah, so Inspire Libraries in Nottinghamshire, I'm doing their writing in residency
How have you
stuff.
found? I did this last year. It was wicked.
Yeah, it's so well organised as well. They are on it, aren't they? We've worked with 270 kids across 4 schools, I think, in the last month and a half. So
that's cool.
Writing poems about seeds and growing plants from objects that might not otherwise be seeds. Like, what would a button grow into? What would a thimble grow into? That kind of thing.
What a great idea for a poem. Maybe that's something to have a go at right now, straight after the gate.
Yes, please, send it in.
Well, I've known Berka for a while. Yeah. I'm guessing you know Berka for a while. I think if you're part of the scene, you will have definitely bumped into Berka at some point because he's worked for Apples and Snakes. He's been a writer and performer in his own right for like 25 years. He's been part of the scene.
It's incredible.
Yeah, and recently Berko was made the poet in residence at Glastonbury Festival. I don't know if you saw any of his work because some of it went viral, didn't it?
Yeah, there was stuff being shared by like random people from my high school who have no interest in poetry. So that's when you know that it's really crossed over, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was really, really cool to see that. Well, Berko's going to come in and talk with us about what it's like being at Glastonbury. Is there anything else you'd like to kind of go over?
Well, I'd really like to hear how the scene has changed and developed and how we as poets can get more involved in getting more gigs and things like that. I think would be really cool.
Yeah, I like Berko a lot. He can be quite blunt. That's what I quite like. So there's sometimes I think in the scene we can, it's a very supportive scene, it's very, very kind. And Berko, I think, is someone who's very supportive and very kind. But also I've always enjoyed conversations because he will give his opinion.
He tells it like it is, and you need that sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I think so. We've got a great question from a listener, Stuart, we're going to discuss as well. And if you are at the point where you're writing poetry and you're wondering about how to tap into the wider network of individual nights, I think we're going to be probably going into that today.
I hope so.
And also how to kind of maybe build some kind of profile or how to think about your own identity as a poet and performer within that scene. I think we're going to be discussing some pretty big questions, which would be really, really cool. Should we start off with a poem?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this is a piece sent in by Hazel Warren. The moment we heard this piece, we definitely wanted to include it. So a little while ago, we had an episode with Teresa Lola, and we talked about the sounds of words and the shapes our mouths make when we kind of say them out loud. Hazel heard the conversation and it made her think of a poem that she had written, inspired by another piece, which she'll tell you about at the start of the poem. This is a piece called Nest.
Nest. After Zafir Canile, Foxglove Country. Sometimes I like to live inside the word nest. In the midst, I nestle down, habitate and hesitate, safe amongst twigs and feathers and fluff. You can find me if you look careful and quiet inside the word nest. I am small, hidden by the way your tongue presses palate behind your teeth for n. Blocks the view in, humming softly, protecting me like a no, like a not yet, whispering a nothing. And then, if you're careful, quiet, it gives way and you catch a rare glimpse, unveiled. I'm here, resting like yesterday's, pressed in the S, softens around me like a yes. Some may call this insulated festering, but it's smaller, neater in my nest world. The end of the word has a softness. The sibilant floats into the final stop. It ends on a quiet note, and you're left wondering if you ever really saw me there, tucked inside, inhabiting the word nest.
Thank you so much for that piece from Hazel Warren. It was so lovely that you sent it in, and it's so great to hear that what we're talking about is reaching people. If you get the chance, please go and check out that Teresa Lola episode with Jay Sandu as well. It's a fantastic episode. But we are really excited today, Leanne and I, because we've got Berko is with us. Hey, Berko.
How you doing? Good to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Sorry I was slightly late, but I'm here now. So.
You're all right. Backland Studios is an amazing studio, and it's very kind of secluded, but it means you've got to really kind of spot the turning as you head in. But you've been working hard, right? You've been prepping things for Shambhala, but also you've been coming off the back of Glastonbury.
Yeah, so I think I've been back for a few weeks now. It's a strange adjustment coming from a world where essentially everyone there wants the best for everyone else.
Yeah.
Coming back into a world where suddenly no one will let you out in traffic, people are pushing in front of you in queues, and there's a different level in kindness between that and the rest of the world, I think.
Yeah. Festivals are a very unique part of the poetry calendar, aren't they? A really good festival kind of charges you as much as, drains you for performance.
Oh, and can also be just incredibly humbling.
Yeah.
The idea when you first get booked to perform at Glastonbury is you feel to yourself, I've made it. This is it. Like, I'm up there with Dua Lipa, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Then you do the gig to a tent, which is a transient audience of people who come in and stay for as long as you can hold their attention.
Yeah.
And you have all the sound of all the other venues sort of like interfering with what you're doing. So there's lots to deal with. And I know for some people you might arrive, walk out on stage and there'll only be 5 people there. But the reality is those 5 people have stayed for you.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, for me, the clearest idea of audience development is people who saw you live at one point, who are then going to follow your work from then on.
For that Glastonbury gig, though, when did you first get asked? How did that happen? How did you feel when you got asked to be the... Because not just a gig, right, at Glastonbury now, but being the poet in residence at the whole festival.
Yeah, so the actual job of the poet in residence has existed for, I think, about 20 years. Your aim is to experience the festival and to write a poem a day that then goes onto the Glastonbury website. On top of that, you have a gig at Poetry and Words. I was offered the thing sort of earlier this year, and it was one of the most exciting things for me. It felt like the exact thing that would be perfect for me to do this year. Okay. It's 20 years since I first performed at Glastonbury.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in a point of returning to being full-time freelance.
Yeah.
And also just the love I have for Glastonbury is it's always the best part of my year. Okay. So being invited to do this thing was incredible. I was then able to leverage that a little bit. I've been to the festival a few times, so I know a few other people at different venues. I ended up doing 5 gigs. I went on Radio 6. I wrote loads of poems. Generally, it was just like very overwhelming. And then the video that I recorded with Craig got very popular.
With Craig Charles, right?
Yeah. Which then meant for the first time in my life, I experienced this thing of people, while I'm in a conversation with someone tapping you on the shoulder and saying, sorry, mate, I don't want to disturb you, but can I just get a selfie with you? The first time it happened, I thought it was a joke. I thought the person I was talking to was winding me up and it was their friend. The second time it happened, I was like a little bit shy about it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I just didn't want it to happen anymore.
The piece you mentioned was Here's to You, Glastonbury.
Yeah.
Which you wrote before the festival.
I actually wrote it when so it was the year I did the Glastonbury build with Greenpeace. And that year I was there, you're there for a month.
Yeah.
Literally from the point you walk in the field and see them putting up scaffolding. So you go from it being an empty space to all of this work happening. And what really stood out for me is the only way that happens is by every single person on site doing that little extra to help all those other people who are slightly behind.
Yeah.
And there's just such a collective feeling of wanting it to succeed.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever worked in any corporate jobs, but quite often in those kind of jobs, you have someone say something like, wow, this is all going to fall apart, but it's not my responsibility. That doesn't happen at Glastonbury. At Glastonbury, if someone could walk by somewhere and be like, that's a bit loose, and they'll hammer it in.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Whether or not it's their responsibility.
And you get that same level of camaraderie among the poets and the performers.
Oh, absolutely.
As well,
amongst everyone there. Like literally, if you walk around the festival and go, oh, I really need some water, a stranger will hand you a bottle of water. Like you just have to put it into the universe and everyone will collectively provide.
But that piece, You should definitely check it out. I mean, it's quite easy to spot because it's got over 100,000 views.
Yeah, it's got a lot.
It's one of those moments, it hasn't happened as much over the last couple of years, where you see somebody's poem being shared by people who don't normally engage with poetry on the socials.
Oh,
and I was like,
yeah.
as Berko, that's cool. And it's cool to see when those things happen. But if you check the poem out, you reference a lot of people. How long did it take you to research and go through all the job roles?
I wrote it while I was there. So I literally would be working in an area on the build, and I'd be like, right, who've we got here? That's a builder, that's a carpenter, that's a scaffolder. And I'd just make notes. So then in the evenings when we finished work, I'd walk around the festival, look at all the details of things that had happened and think, well, for that to be there, somebody has done that. Essentially just wrote a massive list, had hundreds and hundreds of job roles or specific actions within the list, and then shuffled it around until it rhymed. That was it.
What are you going to do?
I've been involved in the Glastonbury build quite a few times. I know that there are thousands and thousands of people who currently are in a field struggling to deal with the weather and are setting up the party for the rest of us. I don't think these people get enough praise.
No.
So I have a poem here that's called Here's to You, Glastonbury, where I want to just raise a glass to those people.
Come on then.
Here's to anyone who's been wearing high vis for the last few weeks. And here's to all those who never stopped doing the final few tweaks. Here's to the builders and the chippies and the scaffs and all the crew. To the unskilled and the hippies and the grafters. Here's to you. Here's to the plant drivers and the tractors and the guys on cherry pickers. And anyone that works at heights that'll make you wet your knickers. Here's to the sewers and the makers and the crafters and the painters and the fencers and the traders and the ones who just worked later. And the kitchen staff and caterers and the washers up and bakers, steady-handed masking tapers, and that gang that hangs that apparatus. Here's to the teams that cladded all the bars and the ones that put in the real big steels. Here's to those two people who made those massive leaves in that one kid's field. Here's to the sparks and electricians who did all the cables and the wiring. Here's to the late night lighting teams whose work is so inspiring. To the people that make the massive sculptures and the team that do the DJ tree. To anyone working extra late to get things done behind the scenes. To all the folks who painted fronts, hung things up or tied things down. The projectionists and stage designers who helped to build this crazy town. To the tradespeople with traditional tools carving weighty wooden mushrooms, to the man who makes the wind chimes and the windmills and the wood looms, to the wicked willow weavers with their wonderful dexterity, to the helping hands from holy lands who span holistic therapies, to all the roadies moving cases, all of the stage managers, to the sound techs on the open mics who are making pros of amateurs, to the person who puts in all the poles, to the ones who builds that stage, to the heroes who hung 100 streamers, bits of bunting, lights and braids, to anyone who's stretched a tent to achieve optimum tension. To anyone who's hanging Hessian over all that Harris fencing. To the people who put the hammocks up, my God, you are angels. To anyone who sets up chairs, builds a bench or puts up tables. To anyone who laid the track, turned a screw or hammered a nail, tied a rope, hammered a peg, held a board or stretched a sail, hung a light, sewed a flag, used a brush or power tool. The buggy drivers, toilet painters, security and campsite crews. To all the bar staff, all the sculptures and the guys who make that massive head, or the giant robot insects or the seaside pier or pyramid. To what must be the 200 people who painted every single bin. To the clean-up crews who do the loos, you really put the effort in. To the food vendors and recycling collectors, the stewards and the litter pickers. To anyone who brought their sequins, brought their face paint, brought their glitter. To all of you who gave your time to really make this party. The fire-breathing, manic pixie, yogurt-weaving, planet-fixing, total dream of magic stitching, tofu-eating wokarati. Thanks to all these people, for all they did and all they'll do. And thanks to those who stay behind to be part of the clean-up crew. See, this is a festival that was built from action. And every action is an act of love. It'd be for nothing if not for you. So here's to you for showing up.
Oh, John, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
So you write this piece, you go on Radio 6 Music with Craig Charles, it's recorded. You maybe don't even know that it's gone up, because they put things out separately.
I didn't realise they were filming.
Oh, okay, really?
In 2022, I did quite a few interviews and poems on Craig Charles' show. We'd do a Zoom call.
Yeah.
So we'd just be in darkness talking to a voice, or I was just recording poems as WhatsApp messages and sending them to the producer. I just didn't realise that they filmed radio.
Okay, yeah. When did you find out it was online?
I found out while I was at the festival.
Okay.
When I was sent the poem by my kid's mum, who said, just saw this on Radio 6. And then watched the video, had a real moment of feeling like this is probably like the best content that I've ever been.
The cutaways are great. The production values on it are really good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a weird thing. I think when I was diagnosed as autistic about 5 years ago, there was a realisation for me around lots of things that are autistic traits that I'd always assumed were just part of my personality. The threat of being perceived. I think there was a point in my 20s when I was seriously considering whether or not I'd be a poet and spoken word artist or if I wanted to try and be a stand-up comedian. I never performed once as a stand-up comedian. I wrote loads of stuff, never performed it. And looking back at it, I think it was actually about the fear of popularity. Whereas poetry is a thing that I can be expressive and creative in, but we all know the ceiling for poetry is those gigs for 5 people. I'm fine with 100 people seeing me because the likelihood is that they don't know me. There was also a thing of like coming up through spoken word. I hung around with like Kay and Scroobius Pip and people like that, and they were getting that 15 years ago. You try and have a conversation with Scroobius Pip in a public place and 100 people want to take a selfie with him. There's no cohesion to your conversation because of it. I think there's always been a thing of me of like, I don't put stuff out on social media very much. I know you and I have talked about this, Mark, and you're like, you really need to get stuff on your socials. That's how you engage people. But also it feels quite exposing.
Kind of hate the socials as well.
But it feels quite exposing for me to... the whole idea of like, hi guys, how you doing? I'm just checking in. Like, it hurts me to think about the idea of doing it.
So I can imagine that is quite a shock because suddenly you've done something, which was a noisy thing, right? You're going on the radio, but it became noisier. Right? Are you happy with how that came, like the reaction to it and everything?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine. Like you said, there were lots of people sharing it who are not poets. There were much less poets sharing it. Which was notable for me. The reason Craig Charles wanted me on the show is we had a big conversation. We actually sat in the Blue Peter Garden to have a big chat afterwards, and he said he feels like the work I make has the potential to cross over for people that don't like poems. Which I aim to do. Like the people I'm writing for are not people who sit around going to analyse.
Which is also how Craig Charles started out. Like I remember watching him on TV, like rhyming little things on like Go Getters. I remember watching on a kids show and stuff. And it was exciting for me going, it's fun. It's funny. Like, so I bet he's got a real ear for that.
But I think it leans into the larger issue with poetry. It is an art form that is so varied and diverse, but when you walk into a primary school and say, put your hands up if you like poetry, everyone in that room has a preconception of what it is at 8 years old. But they can't tell you what it is, but they know whether or not they like it or don't like it. I always like to follow the question with like, who likes websites? Who likes apps? You like apps on your phone? Yeah, nice. I just find it so funny that there is such a limit on this thing. So I think what has to happen is that we have to be writing poems that can appeal to people that don't like poems. Like imagine if singers were only writing songs for other singers. Like if you were only dancing for dancers, it just doesn't make sense to do that.
And a festival is a good space to be writing for that because, like you said, there's a transient audience. You buy a ticket for a festival, often not knowing anyone that's on the bill. So people are maybe a little bit more open to like trying something different. Did you enjoy the whole experience of Glastonbury?
Yeah, I love every moment. Should I tell you about the gigs that I did? You can see the contrast in those gigs, which I think is always fun. First gig I did was at a place called the Open Arms, which is essentially a pub. It's a small green and yellow tent. That's a very noisy space, right by the main track. There's lots of stuff going past it. It's opposite Greenpeace, so there's all the interference from there. I went on stage to the sound of 500 people just outside the venue having their own conversations. No one's there to hear me. So it's an interesting gig. You've got yourself as a performer. There's a great description of this in Kay's book where they talk about the 3 points of performance: performer, audience, and the work. I think when you're working in festivals, you've also got environment as a fourth element. So in that situation, the environment is against me. There is no audience. All I can do as a performer is I can hold my space and I can give off an energy of strength and consistency. And what happens is gradually across the course of the gig, 15 people who were walking by heard it and creeped in. Those people are locked in and focused. So that one was a real victory. I got an audience of about between 15 and 20. but I earned them. I pulled them in. They weren't there when I started. They were there when I finished. Second gig I had was Cabaret Stage, performing with Ishes VV World, who is the BSL Poet Laureate. We made a plan that I was going to perform in English, that I was going to introduce him in BSL, and then he was going to perform in BSL. That gig, I think we had 100 people spread across a space that holds 2,000 in the dark, and everyone was lying down.
Okay.
So again, potentially successful. What I really enjoyed was connecting with Ish. I'm now level 2 BSL. I've really got Charlie wasn't here because I wanted to have try and practice. Love a practice. The third gig, I went to see Joshua Inahin perform. And was in the backstage bit of Greenpeace. And the stage manager of Greenpeace was like, "Oh my God, you're the guy from the video. Can you come and do a poem here?" So I was like, "Yeah, I'll come and do a poem." So next day went to do a poem. He was like, "Brilliant, you're just going to go on before Peter's band." So I sat in the back, waiting for Peter's band. Some guys came in. I was like, "You right, mate? What's your name?" He's like, "My name's Cole." I was like, "Oh, cool. What do you do?" He's like, "I'm a musician." Then Pete Doherty showed up, and it turns out Peter's band were the Libertines. Wow. So I walked out on stage, handed the printout of my poem as I stepped onto stage. There was at least 10,000 people, and then me. They weren't expecting me, so already there's some conflict. I didn't enjoy that at all.
Okay.
Shouting a poem over the sound of 12,000 people who don't understand why the band stood behind me aren't yet performing. Finished the poem and immediately ran off stage and went back to my tent.
Decompress, right?
Yeah. I mean, every festival you've got to spend a little bit of time being sad in your tent, otherwise what are you doing? So that was great. And then, I did Tung Fu was the other gig I did. That's what I remember.
Lovely.
Yeah, it was great. Really enjoyed it. I've never been successful at Tung Fu.
Oh, if you've not heard of Tung Fu, Chris Redman has set it up. An amazing band. And the idea is, as a poet, you go on stage and you don't communicate with the band before you step on stage. You get to pitch them on stage what backing music you'd like, right?
Yeah.
So what did you go for?
Well, I've never been successful with Tung Fu. I write lots of stuff that uses lots of rhyme. But the way that I do that is I switch time signatures between stanzas. I try and build texture into what I'm performing, because if you just have one speed, one tone, one level of delivery, one emotion, as an audience, no one's experiencing anything. We react to change. So what I've always experienced with Tung Fu is, because there's not the rehearsal and the planning, I forget that the band don't know the work. So I change and they don't, and it surprises me and it throws me off. This year I made the plan to improvise, and that was successful for me.
Okay.
That's what.
So how much of the poem did you improvise?
Well, I did 3 of the ones I'd written about Glastonbury. And what I mean by improvise is I was like, I'm not going to try and affect any aspect of the music. I'm going to give them a big description at the start, and then I'm going to react to them rather than let them react to me.
Did you cut lines? Did you?
No. I just spaced it out a bit more. There were some moments where I just I did some face stuff, just a bit of mugging, mugging and vamping to get through the gaps. I was 95 or 82% happy with it, so it's fine.
That's cool.
Final gig was the Glastonbury Poetry and Words gig. This one I have to do all my Glastonbury poems. Where the stage is, there's another stage directly opposite. There was lots of issues with sound bleed over the weekend. So I looked at the schedule of that stage and realised that they had a band that was doing their last 10 minutes in my first 10 minutes. I went online and looked up the band, found their music, found a video of them doing a set somewhere else, skipped to the end and looked at what their last 5 minutes was, and then set my BSL poem in my order at that point. So I rehearsed the BSL poem to the music of that band. So then when I came to do my set, the first ones were a couple of ones that had words in them. The music I practiced to started. So I performed this piece to that music. As far as the audience can tell, they think this is just happening. They don't realise quite the level of psychopath that I am.
I love it though. Isn't it cool?
It's really impressive.
I love chatting this kind of crunch about what we do.
My last 2 poems were just in silence, and I'd won that attention at this point. I think probably 30 to 50 people.
Was that your favourite gig?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was definitely my favourite one.
You put the work in to kind of work out how to frame it. It's so interesting to hear the work you put in around the performance. People want the gig, a lot of the time, but it's like there's a lot of things you have to do. Have you got any advice for anyone else who's thinking of trying to get festival gigs?
So generally, there's a number of festivals that open application sort of around December, January. So Glastonbury applications normally open around there. Anyone can just apply. You send in some videos, some poems, and fill out a form about why you want to do it. Shambhala, I think we opened in February, but same kind of thing. For Shambhala, I do free 50-word questions because we don't need essays about this. I just want to hear, if you've been to a festival before, what your best experience is and why you want to come. And then a video. My advice would be, when you're sending a video of you performing, send just that. Don't send me a poetry film that you've made. Send us a video that is one shot of you performing your poem so I can see how you will be on stage.
And those videos need to be ideally in front of an audience, do you think? Or
yeah, I think if you're performing without an audience, you're rehearsing.
Yeah.
So I think you need an audience there, because as humans, we react to each other. So if you're performing into an empty space, you're getting nothing back. And it means that all the energy coming into that is you. When you perform in front of an audience, the way you pause changes. How you deliver things, like who you're looking at, can change how you deliver each line. I feel like all of those things are important, yeah.
Do you guys disassociate when you're on the stage? Because I think I do. Like, I did Shambhala last year. I was really lucky. It was like a big audience, but I remember going out and then it's just over sometimes. And sometimes I can't even recall what happened when I'm on stage. Has that ever happened to you guys, or is it just me?
I think I do a thing where generally I like to have learnt the poem enough to just be in autopilot.
Yeah, muscle memory.
So there's definitely times where I come and I'll start performing, and then I start thinking about what's happening in the room and looking around. I then have a moment in my head where I'm like, oh, hang on, we're in this poem. And then I'll go back in and focus on the poem again.
How about you, Leanne?
Yeah, I think I have a similar thing. I think it's a case of, like, when you know the material well enough, the poem's well enough, the poem is happening whether you like it or not, essentially. And so you're sort of free to I mostly do the sort of the worrying and are my hands in the right place? Am I doing something weird with my face? All that kind of thing. But yeah, I think there's it's like when you're driving somewhere you've been loads of times and you just sort of start and then you're there.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same vibe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that's great.
That's a really good way of putting it.
I try and make it clear what I'm going to do in my own head before I start the thing. So I know that when I say this line, this hand comes up. So I don't ever worry about what my hands and face are doing, because it's all part of the autopilot.
Cool. So it's part of the rehearsal process, and there's like an intentionality to every step of what you do in the performance.
Yeah.
You break out of that still sometimes, I imagine.
So there's, like we say, if there's a thing that happens, sometimes the environment can cause a change. So sometimes you can be in a place where actually it's too small to do everything that I'd planned. Sometimes there'll be a thing where I'm like, this was a whole thing I was going to do, stood up, that moved around in a way, and I've got a chair in a corner with a microphone at it. So I have to try and do as much of what I can do within that space. I try and block movement things where I have a microphone stand, and I'll work around that stand so I know when my hands come in front of it, when my hands are behind it.
So it's almost as if you're doing all this planning ahead of time so that you've then got the flexibility within that on the stage. That's cool. Yeah.
I once had Disraeli come and do a gig for us where it'd been booked for a year. It was for the RSC.
Yeah.
And it ended up, I think there was 12 people there for the gig. And Diz did a thing where he started off, he was stood on stage and he looked at the audience, he goes, tell you what guys, let's just put all our chairs in a circle and I'll sit in the circle and we'll do it like this. He left 3 empty chairs in the circle, did his first piece from one position, literally looking into the eyes of the people sat next to him, then moved across, did one there, moved across, did one there. Seeing that moment, I'm like, that's beautiful. He's looked at this audience environment and he's gone, let's make this super special. Let's make this a moment that no one here ever forgets.
Yeah.
Because it looks like some people forgot to come.
Yeah. And there's something in there about having the confidence in your choices in the moment to go like, actually, I know that this would be better this way, so I need to go for it.
I remember I did a compare workshop like years ago, and the guy said, one thing that stuck with me, he said, you know, the highest level gig you get is a happening, and a happening is when you feel you've experienced something that no one else will get. And if you can get the gig elevated to the point that it feels like a happening, just saying things like, whether it's true or not, going like, I've not really told anyone this before, it just gets a bristle to what's going on. I think Kay Tempest is really good at doing that with people, making them feel like they're getting a happening through that intensity that builds through the set.
I've seen Kay do gigs where they'll stop mid-poem and go, sorry, I just wasn't really in that. Do you mind if I start again? And the audience are like, yeah, of course you can. Do it again. Because they were in it. And they're like, wow, what's this going to escalate to when he really goes for it?
Maybe we could have a piece. Do you write during the time at Glastonbury?
Yeah. So this is one of the poems I wrote at Glastonbury this year. It's actually a poem for anyone who's going to be there in 2027. If that's you, come find me. Come find me on the dance floor. Stomp in circles with strangers, all lasers, spotlit like we're famous, displaced and uncaged, shameless, graceful and dangerous, sore. Come find me in all the soft corners, face down in a puddle of people, befuddled and peaceful, cuddled so close it's like I'm smothered in treacle, in love with that feeling that everyone's equal. Or come find me outside on the benches, expounding at length about historic adventures, cigarettes at arm's length, fireflies for attention. Or come find me in the crowd, front left by the speaker, where the music's so loud it drowns out the bad feelings, and we're singing along, and we're breathing as one, and when the band stop playing we shout, one more song. Or come find me in the woods, when it's late, walking wild through the treetops, like Ewoks in spacesuits and moon boots, or green neon tree fogs, all lost in an epoch of time. Come find me realigned in the liminal spaces, in the excitement of strangers and the smiles on their faces. Come find me in explosions and fireworks and moments, in all the dark corners and in minds when they opened. Come find me in the sunrise, the morning after a night that never ended. Find me finding myself. Come find me transcended. Just come find me.
Hey, that was wicked. That's such a great piece. I can see how that kind of is getting the crowd really built up all the way through it. The rhyming, the building of the energy, the change of location as well.
How
did that go down?
It's just tricks. Just tricks. Just pick 5 emotions, put them in different areas.
Sometimes I feel like we just manipulate people.
Oh, it's all it is. It's all it is. One of the poems I wrote was called If It Rains. So everyone's like, oh, what about if it rains? And I was like, cool. So we'll look at 5 senses. We'll say if it rains, we'll represent how rain would be in each of the 5 senses. We'll put it in 5 locations around the festival, patch that together. It will finish with imagine when the rain stops, because that feels like a clean end. Once the frame's there, the pieces all just kind of fall into place. Because it's like, okay, this is what this is going to be. This is how it's going to affect people and how it's going to work. I wrote it as a poem that I knew people would like, but it isn't necessarily a poem that I like.
That's interesting, isn't it?
If that makes sense. There was a great conversation I had a long time ago with a guy called Randolph Matthews, who's an incredible singer. Everyone should look him up right now. We'll pause for a second while you Google that. Cool. Randolph did a talk for me in this thing, and part of the conversation of it, he was saying he's reached a point in his career where he knows how to make good work quickly. So when he's commissioned to do a thing, he's like, right, I've got a bunch of frameworks that I can just use on this. I'll put this places things into these positions. I'll do this with this. And in a day, I can turn out a piece that earns me money, that from their point of view, when they hear it, they're like, this is perfect. I think that that's the aim. In terms of like making a living. So I also, after that conversation, 10 years ago, we did that. I've spent a long time focusing on ways that I could make good work quickly. So what are tried and tested techniques that would definitely produce a thing?
Because you haven't got time for writer's block, I think. If it's like your job, you might only have 1 day a week you can even give to writing, because you've got all these other things you have to do to make it work.
Writer's block is another thing that I don't think writer's block exists. I think what it actually is ego, or what I understand it to be. And again, my understanding of things isn't necessarily how other people understand things.
Yeah.
But what I understand it to be is sit down with a blank piece of paper and you think, oh, what am I going to write? Oh, I can't write anything. I can't write anything. You could literally have written, I can't write anything. And you've done something already.
Yeah.
What I always suggest to people is resist the urge to want to be brilliant.
Yeah.
Because that's what holds you back.
Yeah,
the idea of having this blank page and that your first word must be amazing is what stops you from writing.
Yeah.
I think if you're having difficulty writing, you could sit down and write a description of everything that you can see.
Yeah.
And by doing that, the action of that will create other ideas in your head. Ross Sutherland has a great thing about this where he says it's an exercise. It's the same as doing exercise. If you want to be strong, you've got to exercise every day.
Yeah.
If you want to be a good writer, you've got to write as much as you can. The writing doesn't have to be good, it just has to be done.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to do 10 press-ups every day, they don't have to be good press-ups.
Yeah.
They just have to be 10.
Yeah. I got used to saying to myself, is it good enough? Like, that was it. Is it good enough? Is it good enough at the moment? Do you know what I mean?
That'll do
joining
approach.
the dots, and that'll do it.
Yeah. Nothing inspires that'll do like a deadline. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. A surprisingly small amount of money sometimes, and a deadline is all it takes to get it over the line.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Okay, so I thought maybe what we could do next is we've had some emails from people into the inbox asking different questions, and I thought maybe we could start sharing these on the podcast. So this email was from Stuart. Stuart's based in Norwich. Stuart Webb. We'll put a link to his work in the description. He says, "Hi guys, I wanted to ask if you had any advice or tips about getting established on the circuit and finding more gigs. Last year, I was fortunate enough to win the audience vote at the Poets Palace event in Norwich. I was a headline poet at the next Poets Palace event and got asked to headline at an event in Sudbury. Well done, first off. I'm now trying to get more feature and headline gigs. I've been approaching various nights and offering to perform for the price of a pint. I think we've all been there, to try and offset the fact that nobody knows who I am, but I've not had much success so far. Is there any advice you can offer to help become more established?" He's got a pamphlet and he's been included in the 10 Poets Volume 2 anthology. Loving the podcast, which is great. I'm so glad you asked, Stuart. But I think let's have a chat about this. What would you guys offer as advice to Stuart?
In terms of getting gigs?
Getting gigs. So this is, I guess, Stuart has he's got material. He's won a competition event. He's done some headlining slots. It's tricky, I think, when you try and get outside of your local area to get people to know that you exist. And promoters often are working with very small budgets. I mean, the word budget might not even come into it for a lot of nights. So I guess, how does someone get to the point where they can establish some credibility and find a way of tapping in? Like, almost as I'm saying, I'm like, there's not really a touring network.
No. There's regular nights.
Yeah.
So across the country, lots of cities have a number of regular nights that happen on the first Thursday of the month, whenever it is. Generally, they're once a month things. There's lots and lots of events that are built around a model where they have open mic and a headliner. Anyone can sign up for any open mic. When I started doing poetry, it was 99, 2000. And I'd been booked for one gig. Basically, I was doing a cappella rap, and I did that gig, and then I was like, I need to do more of this. At the gig, I saw a variety of poets who were all very different to me, and I was like, oh, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. I then spent a year just trying to find out where spoken word things were happening, and I spoke to the regional Apples and Snakes person at that point, Steve Carroll. He put me in touch with some other people in different regions, and I generated a list of open mic nights. I then did a month where I just drove to each one. I had no money, so I was literally putting petrol in, driving up, doing the thing, driving home, and sometimes I'd miss a meal in order to drive to do the thing. Doing all of that meant that I got seen at each place by 20 people. Those people, if they liked what I was doing, if I stood out from other people, which I kind of did, I am who I am, and that enters on stage as well. And it isn't like anyone else. I've seen hundreds and hundreds of poems, hundreds and hundreds of poets. There's a style or a way of delivering that becomes quite poetry, for want of a better word. There's an idea that people have when you say, oh, this poetry night, you can imagine what how it's going to sound without knowing what the words are. I think the difference between poetry and comedy is when you look at comedians who become successful, they're all very much uniquely themselves. Their voice speaks of them and their experiences. I think there's also this thing of like when kids learn to sing, quite often they'll sing in an American accent because those are the singers they're listening to. So I think there's a thing of like being true to your own voice, not trying to make it sound like a poem immediately makes it more engaging for me as an audience member.
I think there's also something around that thing that you mentioned about connection and connecting with poetry communities in different places, and to be on the open mic and to talk to different poets, talk to the organisers in the room with them. I grew up in Wisbech, which had no poetry scene, as I'm sure you can imagine. So I had to travel to go to Norwich, to go to Peterborough, to go to Cambridge. And that was actually a blessing in disguise, because you are then plugged into these three very different communities.
The bustling metropolitan that is Peterborough.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you're very plugged in, Leanne. I definitely feel whenever I've gone to like Nottingham or different areas, like your name comes up a lot because you get around.
Infamy. I think a lot of it as well, and this is something that you'll all agree with, hopefully, is being enthusiastic about poetry and enjoying poetry and enjoying other people's poems. And in being part of the community, inevitably people will see you as a safe pair of hands, or somebody who can do the job of poetry, or who loves poetry, or who needs to be involved in poetry. And you're sort of making your own opportunities off the back of that, I think.
I think having a video, like a decent quality video of you performing the work, whatever level you can get at, even if you're in your dining room and you're delivering the poem, like clearly that's like, in my head, that's like almost like a level one. You've got something. But if you're getting a gig, I think trying to find a way to get it filmed, you never know. I used to gig with Tim Clare and he would film entire sets. And I couldn't do that to myself. Like I find that, just sit and go through everything that you've done.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine Tim watching it all back as well.
But the idea of kind of then maybe think about how you can get a version with, an audience, they're responding, maybe something with some cutaways. I personally, I think it's harder to get through now because 10 years or so, things could go viral in a way, but that engine doesn't exist the same on the internet now. People tend to trend by continually putting out work.
It's about pushing every week and feeding the algorithm, and the more you feed it, the more there's like a bottomless
That's
pit.
why it was so cool seeing your piece, Berko, in many ways.
I also think that like focusing on the craft and the performance of the work that you're doing. If you're trying to get performance gigs, practice performing.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference between coming up on stage and reading your poems out. Even if you're holding a book, you can still perform holding a book.
Yeah.
But it's about a shift in energy and it's about making choices that support the work as opposed to lean against it. Can I do a little thing?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
There's a great thing with language where we have a whole subsection of implied meaning around our meaning. This is changed in the way that you stress a word in a sentence. In that sentence, I stressed the word stress, and it made it feel important. My favourite sentence that demonstrates it is 5 words. She didn't steal that pen. So flat, or if I emphasise the second word, it is the true meaning of the sentence. She didn't steal that pen. Any other word emphasised changed the meaning. She didn't steal that pen, means she borrowed it. She didn't steal that pen, means that she stole a different pen. She didn't steal that pen, she stole something else. She didn't steal that pen, someone else did. So immediately we've got 5 meanings to one sentence. So if you've written a line of poetry, there are 10 ways you can read that out that change what it means to a live audience. I think it's about making those decisions. It's not just about reading a poem in a way that sounds like a poem and all of the words are pronounced really well. That tone is actually like hypnosis or lullaby. So what happens when you're performing in that? If you're doing 20 minutes of that, you can't expect an audience to hold that attention. There was a great metaphor earlier where we talked about driving, saying where you go into autopilot and it's like when you're autopilot and you're driving. If that driving is straight down a 70 mile an hour motorway for a solid 20 minutes, there's a chance everyone's going to fall asleep. If that journey is 20 minutes around an industrial estate, whipping around little rig roads, go around the outside, speed up here, stop, let that one out, okay, turn right here, do boom, boom. If you're doing that, it's more interesting. No one's going to fall asleep.
Yeah. Well, and some of that's an argument for going to as many open mics as you can so that you get a chance to practice different ways of doing poems and seeing how it feels with an audience.
But also just to see how the people at that open mic perform.
Yes.
I did a bunch of gigs before Glastonbury. There was a person that I saw at a couple of those gigs. Her name's Sky Lily. I saw her in Brighton when I did a gig in Brighton, and then I saw her in Manchester when I did a gig in Manchester. Both times she was just on the open mic. She's travelling to those places for those specific things to get more exposure, to build it. I know who she is. Next time I see her, I'll say hello to her, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, she's building that awareness.
Yeah.
And also what she's doing is, the open mic in Brighton was a lot of sort of older people doing very kind of traditional formic things. The open mic in Manchester was lots of much younger people doing sort of like more rhythmic or rap-based things. So just by going to these nights, you're also just seeing how different the scene is.
Yeah.
This is what happens in this area. This is what happens there.
Yeah.
There's a lot around the nature of a city that changes the nature of the writing that comes out of it.
Definitely.
Is there like a spreadsheet anywhere of nights, or is there...
It's too difficult because everything is self-funded and self-appointed.
Yeah.
So if you're running in a night, then basically what you're doing is you're like, right, I need £100 to make this successful. I'm going to pay this person 50 quid to do the gig. I've got £50 for everything else. Yeah. And the venue are letting us have it for free because they get the bar. All it takes is 1 month where you didn't make £100. And you're like, well, next month, if we do this, it's going to now cost me money as an individual. I can't afford to do that, so we're going to miss next month. If a venue's like, hey, sorry, we know we're giving you the space for free, but can you do Wednesday rather than Thursday? There's so many other factors that can change it. And there's been attempts at it. Scott Coe has a great map of spoken word events around the Midlands.
Yeah.
I know Write Out Loud used to have a thing, a dictionary. Apples and Snakes have got Unlisted, which is a place where you can post your own events. But again, it comes down to the motivation of the promoter to share that information.
Yeah. And again, that comes down, doesn't it, to having that connection and community and being able to go out and talk to people and say, so maybe you go to an open mic in a different town and you get chatting to a poet afterwards and you say, oh, what else is good in this city? Or where have you been to in the next city that you would recommend? It's very much a word of mouth thing because like you say, I used to run a night in Nottingham and things come and things go and things happen and then things disappear because a lot of us are working other jobs and like priorities change and all that. It's not a concrete thing, is it?
As poets, we're all obviously solely driven by our own ego, which means that if you're running an event in a medium-sized city, there's also another event in that medium-sized city who are definitely competing for that same audience.
Yeah.
That's interesting that you say that because certainly in Nottingham, we have the opposite problem. We have loads of brilliant little events and they all have their own audience.
Yeah.
And that audience will only go to that open mic perhaps, or maybe they'll go to one other thing. Yeah. But there's not a huge amount of crossover.
But that's just an extension of the thing. That's because those people who are running those events, those are those people's people. So the person that's running this event A, they've got a little group of people because they had to have them to put it on, because why else would you put on a night if you didn't have at least a couple of people with you doing it? People B, they've got their people. Those people aren't audience. Those are all the poets that are associated with those events. The audience are the 6 people who come in randomly, the friend of someone, somebody who was like, oh, should we go here for a drink? What's this? We'll sit here as well. And I think that there's a real...
it's lovely, isn't it, when you get an audience that turn up who trust your event. Because we used to run one at the Brewery Tap and people would just come and they would just trust that it's there. But I can imagine as well for an organiser, that also builds tension because you could lose that audience and you have to be really careful about who you then book, which means trying to get someone to take a punt on your name if you're not from that city, they don't know, haven't seen examples of the work, could be tricky. Do you program for Phantom Laundry at Shambhala?
Yeah, so I'm part of the team programming for Phantom Laundry. Apples and Snakes, I ran, I facilitated and was lead producer for Words First, which is the BBC's search for the spoken word star of the future. I was involved in the Outspoken Prize at the very beginning, all those years ago.
Yeah.
But essentially, each of those things is, Shambhala, we had 300 applicants. Words First, it was an average of 680 every time. And you have to watch all of the video to understand whether or not this thing is good. Like, there's so much variation. There's so many moments where one line at the end of a thing could change everything about what you'd seen before.
Yeah.
So you have to watch the whole thing.
Yeah.
What this means is you get locked into chunks of time where it's like, today I'm just watching other people's poetry videos. Yeah. And 2.5 hours in, it can start to feel like you've been watching the same video again and again and again and again. It's when something breaks out from that I notice it. We as humans respond to change. If you're laughing when someone tells you bad news, it hits you harder because the drop from laughing to sad is much bigger than neutral to sad. So change is what inspires us, change is what holds our attention. If I'm watching an open mic night and there's 20 poets and 16 of them sound close enough to each other that if I close my eyes, they could be the same person, what is going to catch my attention is that moment that it's not like that.
And this is tough because no poet ever wants to hear that they sound like other poets. Like,
no one wants it.
Do you know, like that's like an icy dagger to the heart.
Well, and I think some of that is like, again, practice and learning and finding your voice, and that takes time sometimes, doesn't it?
So to sum up, Stuart, thank you so much for sending that question in. It's caused a lot of discussion for us already, and maybe some of the things we've said are resonating with you. Fundamentally, I feel like we all want to say, like, well done.
Yeah, keep going, basically.
Yeah, you're connecting with audiences. You're doing the good work of helping us build audiences by getting out and performing work for people. And clearly interested in, like, connecting with the scene and moving around. I'll have a look and see if we can find any resources that are useful for this. We'll put links to those in the description. But also, if you're listening to this and you think you might have got the silver bullet that we all need or an answer to this, send it in and we'll talk through this. Maybe we'll have a few, like, sharing ideas and resources or anything anyone's got. Every time I think someone has a success and it builds something, the water rises for everyone.
Yeah.
That's why we call this We the Poets. That we is very important because we all got to kind of work out how we build this infrastructure and get it moving when we're not the most lucrative or easy to corral group of artists.
Yeah. I think working on individuality, working on what makes you, I think is more interesting than what makes you a poet. I think that there's a lot that can be taken from any situation where it's one person talking to an audience of people is something you can draw upon to use within your own performance.
Absolutely,
Be it political speech, TED Talk, comedians, whatever it is. One person stood, microphone, that there is doing stuff, is making choices around communicating information to an audience that can be useful for you as a poet trying to communicate your information to an audience. Watch how politicians hold their hands. Watch how comedians use a stage. Watch how people stop on their TED Talks and pause for a moment right before saying the most important aspect. All of these are little tricks that are being done to help that process of communication happen. I think that when you write a poem, what you do is you write it in chunks, and each chunk is a unit of sense. So this is a moment that makes sense right now. This is a piece of information. If my poem starts with there's a plant on a coffee table and I need you to see that image, I can't go, there's a plant on a coffee table, 2 men sat by a bus stop. I've lost the image. It needs to go, there's a plant on a coffee table. You as an audience process that. That's one piece of sense. It can be a full verse, can be one piece of sense. One line could be a unit of sense. But you need to make sure that the bones of what you're communicating is being communicated. And that all comes down to how you're saying what you're saying.
When I work with young writers, I try and say to them, like, you just got to get in. The first line is you're getting into the room with the audience. And people try and, like, flower it up too much sometimes. And you can do things on the page that might I don't understand something on the page, I can come back to it later. But if you don't understand what I'm doing on the stage, I'm going to have problems, right? So you have to not walk into the door frame at the start of the piece. You've got to work out how you're kind of like...
Got to hit the ground running, essentially.
Yeah. And I've made that mistake with pieces in the past. Well, great conversation. Shall we listen to a poem that's been sent in, maybe?
Let's do it.
So this is a piece that's been sent in by Helen Cross. It's called The Final Apple Pie.
The Final Apple Pie. Apple tree confetti rotted deep into clay, ghostly roots of fallen trees and footsteps from my childhood. I remember the bounty. Granny Smith plumped by bees, windfall gathered up in folded skirts, a golden crown of butter and flour submitting to my fork, plunging into softened slices, sprinkled with sugar shards that spoke of a love baked in, cream ribboning from the yellow sundae jug. The final apple pie was not paraded out with pomp and ceremony. We did not think to observe a silence. We did not think to show respect.
Thank you so much, Helen, for sending that in. That was Helen Cross. We will put a link to Helen's work in the description. Did you guys enjoy the poem?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was lovely. I really liked we got a real nice sense of all the senses in there. It felt very tactile as a piece of writing. And I really loved, she got real specificity in her verbs, like the ribboning and
cream
the plunging.
ribboning, I liked,
yeah, real nice.
And the emphasis on that was great as well. What I like is it's this kind of slowed down snapshot moment, and it's not just about apple pies, it's about mortality and everything else. And she kind of... It felt very rich in the language, just like the apple pie.
Yeah. I think what's not being said in the poem is what is most interesting for me.
Yeah.
The idea of it celebrating a moment that you didn't know was the last.
Yeah.
I think that as a concept is beautiful. Like there will be a last time that we ever meet each other.
Yeah.
There will be a last time that somebody ever says my name.
Yeah.
The idea of thinking that it seems so far away and that it seems like everything's just so continuous that to hit a point where it has ended and to look back and see we never realised it was doing that.
Yeah.
We didn't.
And to use an apple pie for that is inspired choice, I think.
Yeah, nice. Also get to name a bunch of apples, which is always fun.
Yeah.
I heard that apples, they're all clones.
Yeah.
What?
All apples are clones. You know, a Golden Delicious is one apple, and the clones of that are all the Golden Deliciouses that are in the world. Because the way that biology works is that because it's cross-pollinated between two, it's the same as people. So apples are the same. So when you're eating a Granny Smith, there's an original Granny Smith tree somewhere that all of those Granny Smiths have come from.
There's another poem there ready to go.
That's wild, isn't it?
There we go.
Nice. Well, Helen, that's your follow-up. Get really involved in doing lots of Apple research for the next 6.5 years and see what you come up with.
Oh, Helen, thank you so much for sending that in.
Loved it.
We're going to chat about apples all after the recording on this. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Berka, what's next then? The Glastonbury thing feels like it must have been so big. For any poet, that would be a benchmark moment in your career, right? What are you going to focus on next now? How does it feel now that thing is, that apple pie has kind of, taste has gone? What's next?
Well, technically, there's not another Glastonbury till 2027.
Yeah.
So I'm considering myself the reigning poet of residence.
Beautiful.
Will hold the title until then. It's interesting, isn't it? Because you talk about this idea of, it's a big benchmark or a milestone in your career. And there's been times I performed at the Royal Opera House once. You know what I mean? There's been huge moments. I did
like Edinburgh as well. That is such a big roller coaster.
I did MTV Base once. That felt like a big deal. And essentially nothing happens. My career is 25 years of basically me just getting on with it, and every now and again there being something which feels like this could be it, and it never is. And I think that's a thing that people have to... Because if that stops you writing, if I come back and I'm like, well, I should be at this level, I should be doing these things, I should be... it's never been about that. It's been about the fact that I want to write things. It's been about the fact that on days when I don't know what to do, I can sit down and write for an hour and I have some sense of clarity or control over something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think there are often moments where I see reactionary poems. So something has happened and somebody wrote a poem about it. And when I see those things, it's hard for me to understand whether they've written this poem because that's a thing they care about, or if they've written this poem because that's a thing they want people to see that they care about.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense? And maybe that's a little jaded. The things I'm writing for me.
Yeah.
Apart from when I know that I've got a gig coming up and it's a 25-minute set and I'm like, I've only really got 15 minutes here that I want to do for an audience. And then I'll specifically write 2 pieces that fill the missing gap, that do a certain thing in terms of steering the set from that poem to this poem.
Yeah.
When I'm writing things to perform, in the writing, I'm thinking about where the breath goes. I'm thinking about, actually, this bit, I'll stutter that line.
Yeah.
And it will feel like it was more.
You really hyper-focus in. It's amazing.
But that's the point. It's about detail.
Yeah.
Poetry is precision and communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're taking a small feeling or thought or moment, and we're trying to send that to another person for them to experience the same.
But I think it's quite a unique thing about how you approach it. I think often that doesn't happen. I don't think about it to the level you do, I think.
There is nothing worse in my mind than writing a poem where the end is, when say, well, what do you want people? Well, they can get what they want from it. I think if that's your aim, then you weren't actually ever saying anything.
Okay.
If it's like, I'm going to say this thing to this audience of people and I don't mind what they take from that or what they experience or how they interpret what I've said, then what are you actually even saying? It's a question that I ask myself. And it's a thing that motivates how I make work.
Yeah. I also like the idea that sometimes a poem is an exploration. You don't know when you start where it's going to go.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of navigating that. Yeah, it's interesting. Sometimes I do like it when someone just hits a point towards the end of a poem and they go, I don't even know what, but that maybe is the message of it, that they're kind of working towards. Leanne, you've got a challenge, right? Because you're writing a piece to perform at Shambhala, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, writing is a term I would use very loosely at this stage. I'm thinking about writing a poem for Shambhala, yeah. But my process tends to be about trying to get out of my own way a lot of the time. So it's like doing the writing first, putting the words down. And then I think for me, the editing process is where all those thoughts and ideas come in. The first thing is just like splurge, and then the shaping of it into something. And sometimes things are shaped into things that go on the page. Sometimes they're shaped into things that I think, oh yeah, that would work in front of an audience. Sometimes they're things that I think, maybe not. Maybe somebody I know would like this in a card or something, which is very cringe, but also something that people do like. But yeah, so it's sort of the thoughts first, the poem second, or the shaping of the poem then is where I decide where it goes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I was mentored for a bit by Daljit Nagra, great poet, really lovely guy, and he made me rewrite a poem. I'd written a 14-line poem about my mum. She kind of doesn't like it. It's called Ogre, right? And it was all about how nothing was scarier than my mum when I was a kid, her voice, and it was 14 lines, and he made me rewrite it 14 times. And I remember being on the 14th time, I was like, come on, man, this is it's only a 14-line poem. And he said, Mark, it takes at least 2 years, I think, to make a really good poem. And I was like, nah, man, I can write it in one afternoon, bust it out on the open mic, I could do whatever.
Yeah.
And increasingly as I've been writing now, I go actually, I don't think of a poem as finished now when I perform it for 6 months. I'm kind of seeing where it sags and tweaking it. Do you guys do this? Do you think of it as you're always working it up?
I'm working on a commission thing at the minute, which is it's for a larger outdoor show. And the first piece of it, I had the core of the idea. I know this is what this piece is about. This is the metaphor that I'm using within it. This is all the bits I'm drawing on for that. And I wrote it, and I was reading through it, and I'm like, it's difficult. It doesn't quite fit, because it's on music as well. It doesn't quite fit here like this. So what I did is I did 2 weeks where every day I woke up, didn't look at what I'd done yesterday. I just tried to write the poem again.
Yeah.
And at the end of 2 weeks, I went into the studio and I said, this is the one I've finished today. And I read it, and it matched perfectly. And then I look back at the other versions. I'm like, I don't know what I was doing there. That I can see how I was trying to make that work, but I was being too complicated in what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And it's the rewriting every day. What happens is the good ideas stay. The bits that were difficult or weren't working kind of like fall away.
Yeah. Right.
Me and Polar Bear made a piece where we both wrote 3 poems, and then the other person wrote the exact opposite version of that poem, matching the syllabic pattern. It took us ages. We only ever performed it once at a sequence of workshops because it was a commission, and then there was an issue with the company. But that work was some of the work I most enjoyed doing.
And I found that when I saw your Boggle piece, Double. When I saw your Double piece at Glastonbury, and I was like, man, those movements have been worked out. Because you.
Yeah. Oh, I did 6 months of 6 months of work on it. I was doing 8 hours a day of just because that piece involves elements of dance. There's bits of it which are just set in facial expression. There's like a conversation over 4 seconds that just happens with facial expressions.
And I was like, and it's 5 minutes.
I think it's about 6.5.
About 6.5. Okay.
With the intro, it hits.
There you go. It felt shorter.
It's long. Good. It's a long piece. I sent it to a few people when I first made it. A couple of people were like, it just feels very long for people to watch. And I was like, yeah, that's because we're not in a room. Because you're watching a video of me performing it in an empty room, and there's one fly that keeps trying to land on my head that's distracting you from actually experiencing the thing. And then when you do it in a room, you can play it in that way, and it's fine. But yeah, there was a lot of work in that. But that's what I call a poem. You know what I mean? 100 words over 7 minutes.
Yeah. But what I really like about this podcast in general is that we get to hear from so many different poets about so many different processes. Yeah. And for me, that really underlines the fact that you can get to poetry in so many different ways. Yeah. And that's really cool. So like every time we talk to somebody and they tell us a different process, it's really important for you guys listening not to go, well, that's how you do poetry.
Oh, no one's getting it. No one's right. Anyone who's come in here and told you how the process works is only telling you their process.
Exactly.
I think there's no right way to do it. There's only what works for you. Any opinion that I ever give to anyone, anything that I ever say, it's only one opinion. It's only me saying this. Yeah. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen to me. Do you know what I mean? I'm always surprised when people do take my opinion seriously, because I'm literally one guy. There's no team behind me. I'm not an organisation. Yeah, I do quite often voice opinions about things that end up with me being in a 2-hour conversation with the head of an organisation. And I'm like, why do you care what I think about your competition? Like, because I'm just a guy.
I think people can feel that you've thought about it a lot. Yeah. I think that's the thing. They can feel you've thought about it a lot.
I've thought about lots of things a lot. It doesn't mean it's real. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that's an actual thing. I've thought about all kinds of things quite a lot. You know what I mean?
Like apples, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I can get involved. We can get involved.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us for this episode. Like, it's been such a joy to record, and it's given us a lot to think about. I think this question about the scene and the infrastructure is one we're going to keep drawing out over the course of episodes. If you've got any more thoughts on that, send them in. If you've got work you want to send to us to play and discuss, please send it to mark@wethepoets.com. Thank you so much, Leanne, for joining us.
Thank you.
And being such a great co-host. And thank you to Berkavitch for joining us. Another round of applause for Berkavitch. Yes.
Also, just to say, if anyone wants to challenge anything that I've said at any point, you can find me online at Berkavitch on all social media, Berkavitch. I love a conversation. If anyone wants to book me for a gig, that's great. This is how I'm trying to get more gigs. I love a day out, so if it doesn't cost me anything, I can come and do it. You know what I mean? If you're covering petrol and buy me a nice meal when I get there, tell me I'm pretty. I'm into it.
Where else can people go if they want to see your work at the moment, Berko?
It could come round, knock on. Yeah. I live on Narrow Lane in Leicester. You can just knock the door. I'm probably on my bench.
The website's the most useful thing anyway, to an extent, right?
Yeah, I really do need to update that.
There's always this is it. It's how you find the time for the
I like to update it once every 10 years.
Yeah,
and just sort of like...
I'm the same as well. Well, thank you so much, Berko, for coming in and sharing your thoughts with us. We really appreciate it. Thanks once again to Chris Barn, every episode, making us sound much more professional than we really are. At Backland Studios, if you ever want anything recorded, you can't do better, honestly. So yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Oh, he's given the thumbs up as well. He's happy. Nice. So yeah, we're all finished for today. Thank you so much to Arts Council England. This project was funded with public funding from them. And most of all, thank you everybody who sent work in. Thank you so much to Stuart, Helen and Hazel for helping us with questions and poems that helped us frame this episode. And thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a great day.